Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee with Creators podcast, and I am your host, Michael. I am a full-time content creator who's been doing this for about 2 years now. Well, the podcasting bit, almost 2 years, and content creation, I'd say about 3 years now. So that's a quick introduction just in case this is your first time listening to this podcast. And if it is your first time listening to this podcast, welcome. I hope you stay. So my co-host today, my co-host Chelsea is actually not here with us today because she is still on vacation, but it's not going to be a lonely podcast because I have a special guest with me, and my special guest is a, what do you call it? Like a reoccurring guest?
Yeah,
Wait, this
I like
is,
that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So second appearance in this scrappy little podcast. So my special guest today is Yi, the founder and CEO of Some Products. Welcome, Yi.
Thank you for having me, Michael. It's great to be back as a recurring guest, and we'll see how this goes. Maybe I'll be back more often.
More often. Yeah, that'll be fun. So to give you guys a little bit of context, Yi and I have known each other for maybe 2 years now, I think.
Has
about
it
2
only
years.
been 2 years?
It feels like it's been longer than
feels
that
like it's
because
been
we've
my
done a couple
life.
of projects. Yeah. I know. Yi and I actually chat quite a bit, and it's a pretty cool relationship.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
I'd call it a really cool relationship just because it started off with me starting off creating my first few videos on YouTube, and then I remember I had no intentions of ever creating reviews of products or anything like that. It was just one of those things that, I wanted to try, but had no idea what to do, where to go. And then this company, guess what? Emailed me, and it's called Some Products. And they're like, hey, we have a product that we would like you to try out and see, what happens. And I'm like, cool. This is like the first product review that I can actually, do. So try my hand in, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely something where it started off purely transactional, right? Hey,
Yeah.
we need people to help us on this campaign. So, my employee who's, in charge of the campaign is reaching out to influencers left and right and, trying to find the best fit. And, in comes Michael. And I think the reason we touched base was actually because I have this need to want to understand who it is that's working with me, who it is that's, representing our product, reviewing it. And, I think I had my colleague essentially set up a call with you, Michael.
Yeah,
right.
It was one of the weirdest things.
Yeah, it was a call. It was basically a founder call with what essentially you would be is like a either a reviewer or a customer, right? But just someone who's like, hey, let's just have an open dialogue. I want to get to know you. And I mean, it was a good call. I think we spoke for probably an hour initially.
Yeah, it was actually really good. So we hit it off like right away. But the funny thing, I don't know if you remember this, but during this time, this was pre-pandemic. So FaceTime or Zoom calls weren't really normal yet. So it was a very new thing for me. Oh, so maybe for you it wasn't.
Yeah, wait, that's true. Well, okay, yeah. Granted, like I'm on Zoom all day for calls and whatnot, but you make a very fair point. It was not the norm.
No, it was not at all. That's why I'm like, who am I? Who is this guy? And I was it's so funny. I was picturing like this older gentleman wearing like a suit and tie, and this guy in a t-shirt.
This child shows up on Zoom, right? And it's like, hi.
Like, who is this guy? But then the moment he spoke, the moment Yi started talking, like I could tell from the get-go, like he is a smart person. You know what I mean? Like I could just tell, like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. So let me listen. I could learn a couple of things from this guy for sure. And then we chatted for about an hour. Yeah. Basically just getting to know each other. And you did say that. You mentioned that you wanted to get to know people who you work with, basically. And that was the purpose of the call. And to be honest with you, Yi, I don't even remember how it snowballed into other things. But basically, we both ended up doing multiple projects since then.
Yeah.
Oh, I think I remember. I think you invited me to your office in LA.
Oh, wait. I think did we meet at CES first, or did we meet because you came to visit me in LA first?
I think I think we went. I met you in LA first because you were in the Bay Area the first time I met you. And then you flew into LA.
I took you on a drive to meet a client, a potential client.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I mean, to provide some context, they're pre-pandemic. The goal of some was, obviously we got to push out units, and one of the biggest avenues that we wanted to push awareness and sales and marketing was through hospitality brands. And what this manifested in was essentially, our team reaching out like mad to any high-end hotel or boutique hotel that existed throughout the US really, but in this case in LA. And Michael happened to come up for a day, and I was like, hey Michael, come with me to do this, essentially what is a sales call. And it was fun. I mean, we got to hang out. Like Michael got to meet my team, and I take a lot of pride in the fact that I think our little team they're very fun. They're like very, very nice individuals, very just like heartwarming. Like these are just like great people who they work hard, and everyone gets along, and everyone looks out for each other. Everyone like really puts in a lot of effort because it's a startup, and so everyone is doing a lot more than what their actual title encompasses, but they do a great job, right? Did a fantastic job.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's one of the things that I appreciate about smaller companies or startups is because you can see the passion behind it, and definitely the people that you were working with when I first met you, I could tell that they were excited. I could tell that they enjoyed what they were doing. There was just a different energy. It didn't feel like someone just showing up because they have to. Yeah. So it was they were very engaging. You know what I mean? When you're having conversations, talking about whatever it is that you guys were working on. And yes, I do remember you took me along for that drive. And I remember this is a funny story because you're like, let's meet up in LA, right? Like we're meeting up for the first time. And you know what I did, Yi? I dressed up, remember?
Yeah, you dressed up. You totally did.
I did. And then Yi's wearing a t-shirt. Or no, not a t-shirt, a sweater. A sweater and jeans. And I'm like, I feel embarrassed. I feel like I'm slightly overdressed. And then you're like, no, dude, you look good. You look sharp.
You do look good.
And I'm like,
you did. You look sharp. You look great. That's like, kudos to you for dressing well.
It's so funny though. It's just so funny trying to look back. Me imagining meeting this CEO, this guy, and it's like it's you.
It's you.
That's not a dig on you. It's just completely unexpected, which is funny because basically that's how our friendship started. From that point.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think that was super
I just want to say, I remember the fact that you came and I cooked lunch for you.
You did?
You remember that? I made you an amazing medium rare ribeye steak served with fresh chimichurri sauce. And I recall, it was phenomenal. And I was like, damn.
It was good, yeah.
I am serving a top-notch meal to Michael on this first meeting.
That's why we were joking that night, right, before I left. And one of your employees was telling me that you think your wife is going to believe you when you say, oh, I had dinner with the CEO of this company and he cooked me lunch. And I'm like, no, probably not. She's going to be like, who is this guy again? And where did you meet him? Online.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And honestly, she's still kind of like that because she still hasn't met me. And yet we talk so much.
I know. It's hilarious. But yeah, so that's I'd say that's a good representation of our relationship, Yi and I. And basically we started doing that. We started from working together, and then it evolved into like this type of friendship. And then it was just like we started just chatting, and sometimes I would get on a call with Yi or just chat with him about, and it's mostly about like brainstorming stuff, right? It's really cool to see a brand's perspective on things, and obviously I'm also sharing my perspective, and that's why we had Yi guest in the podcast a while back just to share that insight. And then I think shortly after that, that's when we started to go to, or that's when you invited me over to CES.
Yeah,
for the first time.
I think so, and that was the second time we actually met up. And I mean, so this is the interesting part because at that point I'd been to CES. I think that was probably like my third year attending, and for you it was your first time. And this is where it gets interesting because it's very fun and enjoyable, and also in some ways it's very sobering to see someone's first time at CES and to see that like cherry get popped, because it is a ride. It is a complete ride.
It's crazy.
And it's like, I think, it'd be fun to share our experiences about what CES was like, in terms of our expectations of going there, and then seeing it, and then walking away from CES to be like, okay, how did it stack up to my expectations? How do I feel about it?
Right. Yeah, I'd love to talk about that, because I don't think I've ever really talked about it unless, aside from just chatting with you. Yeah. Because I don't think anyone else can really, or frankly, I don't think anyone else is interested to hear about that unless you're like a tech guy or you're in the tech field, content creation wise. But yes, the reason why Yi and I started talking about CES is because we actually started getting the emails, right? Like for this coming CES in January, and we were talking like, okay, are you going? And it's a very, very cool event. Definitely nothing like I've ever seen before. And so the first time I went there, I was so scared because I was just like, okay, I'm driving to Las Vegas by myself. This was like 4 o'clock or 3 in the morning, I think. I left San Diego.
You were sick too.
I was sick. Yeah. I was sick. Like I did not feel well at all. So maybe like not even halfway, like a quarter of the way, I actually stopped. Oh, this is a funny side note, but I stopped at a gas station, maybe around, this was like around 4 o'clock in the morning. And I decided that I was going to take a nap, like a short nap, like maybe 15 minutes. And then I was sleeping. I heard this explosion. I'm not even kidding. An explosion. Yeah. Like it rocked everything. And I was just like, holy smokes. Yeah. And I thought I was dreaming. And I got up. I shot up. And I looked outside. And so I can see the freeway from where I was parked. Right. And there was a semi-truck that was on fire.
Oh, my gosh.
I kid you not. It was so random. But everyone from the gas station, early hours, obviously, there's not too many people. Yeah. But I guess that truck caught fire or something, and something exploded. But that got me up, and I started driving.
Did it scare you awake?
I just started driving. Yeah, I was fine from that point on.
Oh, my God. That's insane.
It was crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. And then so I get to CES, and I was expecting, it's not kidding, I was expecting it to be like one big building with... it's just like a convention, right? Like with people with booths and stuff like that. It wasn't like that. It was overwhelming. Because I think the first few hours that I spent walking around, I'm like, okay, I think I absorbed everything about CES at this point. And then I finally, because we met like towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh yeah, we're at this section of the convention. And I'm like, where's that? And he's like, it's in the different building. And then I realized that you have to take a bus. Yeah. To get there.
I mean, it's a whole little district of CES, right? It's not just like one building.
Yes. Yeah. So the area that I was basically walking around in the first few hours was a tiny part of CES.
Yeah, exactly.
It was a tiny part. Yeah. It's crazy. So it's cool from my perspective, though, coming from, someone who creates content that always touches on, frequently touches on tech and innovation and stuff like that. It's overwhelming.
I feel like we should give some context to the listeners for those of you who don't know what CES is, because it's totally possible.
You're right.
Right. I realize we've been talking about this topic for like the past 5 minutes. We have not even mentioned what CES is. So CES is the Consumer Electronics Show. It's the biggest consumer electronics show in the world, and it's hosted by the CTA, which is the Consumer Technology Association. And so they host CES in Vegas. They also host it in China, I believe. And it is really a monstrous event, because every single tech company and tech brand and manufacturer that is involved in this industry, they want to show up, right? This is the event to be in. And it happens same time every year, first week of January. And so this is what Michael is walking into. This is what I was walking into the first time I went. And I mean, and for me, I had been dreaming about attending CES since I was a kid. I'd be reading all the articles and the reviews about, hey, what's new at CES, and like, what's come out and what's crazy, because what you read on the web is a extremely filtered down version of what CES has to offer.
Yeah.
And it's hard to emphasize just how filtered down that is, right?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. And I think, from what I was not expecting from CES is I thought it was going to be, everything's going to be super polished. Like in a way, in a sense that every product that you see is going to be the final iteration of whatever that product is.
Right.
But not necessarily. It's also a chance, and correct me if I'm wrong, Yi, but this is also a chance for a lot of startups to actually attract investors. In some of their products.
Right, completely. It is a chance. So, I mean, to your point, this is great. It's kind of like a little bit tidbit of information. Where Michael was attending, where he was walking around, that is what we consider the main exhibition hall. And that's totally fine. Those are for established companies, or essentially, it doesn't have to be established, but companies that are willing to foot the bill for a lot of money to have space inside the main, Las Vegas Convention Center. However, where I was, our company, Some Products, we qualified as a startup, which meant that we were in the Sands Expo Center. And this is where all the startups are. Everyone has the same size booth. Everyone's equal on the same level playing field. And it's up to you to draw the interest of passerbys. And it's a chance not to just raise funds and get awareness, but it's also a chance to network with distributors, retailers, interested buyers, all of these things, right? And so people are walking around CES with your name badges, and it says on their name badge, like, are you media? Are you a buyer? Are you part of a company? Are you it tells you, and so you can kind of like scout out people who walk by, and so it's a very different vibe.
Yeah, and this is also why actually CES is not open to the general public, because there's a purpose for it. It's not just, hey, look at our products and all the cool stuff that we do. You know what I mean? It's exactly that, to showcase what they can do and attract investors, or just network. So it's an actual it's for the industry basically. So when I walked into the main when I walked into the main exhibit hall, I was just like, okay, I'm not ready to process everything, but I'm going to try. Because remember, Google didn't even they decided not to be in the exhibit hall. They decided to put up their own building outside. Remember, that's a big slide.
That's Google. That's Google, though, right? Google. Okay, so Michael brings up a great point. There are certain tropes or certain things you could expect every year from CES. One is that Google is too cool for school, and instead of being inside an exhibition hall, they build their own structure and a parking lot outside the exhibition hall, and it's insane, right? I think one of the years I attended, Michael, it wasn't the year that you went, but they had a little train amusement park ride that went into a tunnel inside a building, and they had all these it was just this whole random Google exhibit. But at the end, you got a free Google Mini. Right, Google Home Mini, and everyone just got one. Yeah, at the end of the ride, everyone just got one, and I mean things like that, where it's Google is so outrageous. And another consistent one is B&W. B&W always has this insane exhibit. Usually it's some M car drifting around the parking lot, and then some SUV going up a really steep ramp, right, trying to show off the X7 or whatnot.
Yeah.
And then the other trope is Apple never shows up. Because Apple is Apple, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. They never. They never show up because
Apple has their own keynotes and whatnot, and they have WWDC, so they're like, hey, we don't need to be here. And then the last one would be Samsung and LG spend a crap ton of money building huge exhibits inside the convention center, and you're just I don't know why you do this. We all know you make TVs, right? It's we already know what you do.
But see, that's. Yeah, actually, that's what makes it really interesting. Actually, to your point, this, from my personal experience, and that was just that one time that I went to CES, because the last year it was virtual, and that sucked. That wasn't good at all.
That was a shit story. You have to be. Can you? Is cursing allowed on this podcast?
That's fine. Yeah, it's fine. I'll allow it. Don't worry.
Okay.
So, but yeah, LG and Samsung, they really spend a lot of time and money and energy, a lot of effort to basically make their exhibits. It's not even an exhibit at this point. It's they have their own mini warehouse. It's their own little convention inside the convention. So big that they made Sony feel like the new kid in town.
Yeah.
Sony's booth was just oh, okay, Sony, I see you. The biggest thing that they had was the car that they're not building. Remember that? The Vision...
Oh
Vision
my
S or something
gosh,
like that.
I totally forgot Sony built a car. That was nuts.
Yeah.
Okay, so, but to that point, that's what makes CES fun, right? It's like when tech companies build outrageous products that make no sense, and for Sony, like, it made sense. It wasn't so much a performance of, hey, we made a car. It was actually showing, this is what our vision for in-car entertainment looks like, and to showcase that, we built a car to show off like Sony UI UX, right? And it was cool. Yeah. It was really cool, and it caught everyone's attention. Everyone's like, wow, Sony is being Sony again. You know, making crazy things that we're like, wow, like, this is crazy. Like, what's gonna happen?
People actually thought that they were going to compete with Tesla because their car looked good.
Yeah, it looked fantastic.
But then they're like, oh no, we're not building the car, and we're like, ah, that sucks. We want that, but yeah, it's a cool experience because it's not just them trying to show off like their newest TV. Yeah. It really is trying to show investors and the competition, basically, how badass they are. You know what I mean? It's like, oh yeah, you think we only make TVs? Yeah. Well, we also make vacuums. And LG, honestly, my favorite booth, if you can call it a booth, even the word exhibit doesn't feel big enough for me, was LG's. Because their theme for the year that I went was like the smart home of the future.
I don't actually recall LG's booth.
Exhibit? Yeah. It's huge. It's like you're walking inside not even a mansion, but just like its own little mall. And yeah, they have different setups of the smart home, like a smart home office, smart home like bedroom, kitchen. They even had a bar, like a literal like bar that you would see in a nice hotel, for example. And the bartender was a robot.
Oh, that's so cool.
It's so cool. And then they had the closet that had the mirror that I felt like I was in an Iron Man movie. Yeah. Because it's like when you close the door, all these information just show up in the mirror, like the weather, your appointments, and all that. And it's very seamless. And if you close the door, I think you can also see what's inside the closet.
Oh,
so it's really cool. It's really cool. And so they had a lot of those, like that type of setup. And then for Samsung side, Samsung really just focused on the screen. Remember that big, to this day, that's the biggest screen. They called it the wall.
Yeah. Well,
do you remember this?
So Samsung, was that the year when they also unveiled the frame? Or is the frame LG? Dang.
No, I think the frame is LG. The foldable
frame is
one.
LG. Well, it's just like one company came out with an extremely thin display, like extremely thin.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. It's not Sony. I mean, it's not LG and it's not Samsung. It's another company.
Are you sure it's not Samsung?
Yeah, no, because I remember I took a video of it and I thought it was a joke because it literally was as thin as a wallpaper.
Yeah.
Because they had it on glass, and you can see not glass, but like a very, very thin wall, and you can see. Basically, you can check it like how thin it is, and you go behind the wall, and I was just like, it doesn't even heat up. But when you're in front of it, it looks legit like a TV, like a nice LED TV. Yeah. What LG had was the roll-up TV. Remember that? The one that rolls up. So it's like...
I recall the roll-up one. Actually, now I think about it, I wonder if that year they also had the transparent TVs.
That's it. Yes. That's from this. No, it's not from the same company, but I know what you're talking about. Like, it's transparent, and then you turn it on.
It was a Chinese brand. Yeah, it's like you can turn it on, and you can still somehow see through the TV. And I remember I was like, dang, like, this is. I mean, at some point, it's just Chinese companies flexing their R&D, and it's so cool.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
It's very impressive. Nintendo had a wall. Their wall was like an interactive wall. So it's like, remember that video that you showed me from TikTok? The girl that made that laser show, whatever it is. Oh,
the projection mapping onto a wall.
Projection mapping.
Where you get, exactly.
Yeah, Nintendo had that. And then I think it was, basically all the companies that you could think of, except for Apple.
Except for Apple. Actually, hold on. Except for Apple, and I don't know if Microsoft showed up either.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Microsoft wasn't there.
Yeah, I don't think Microsoft... I think they're taking a page out of Apple's playbook, and I believe they just kind of retracted their their normal participation. Is like, hey, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna have our own like little thing.
It'd be so fun though to see them there. You know what I mean? Like I get it from a brand's perspective, like why they want to do their own thing. It would be so fun to see them. I mean, for crying out loud, Canon and Nikon were right next to each other, and they were like trying to just one up each other with, in terms of like, it's really cool. It's just like, yeah, this is awesome. And that was, and again, this is just the main hall, right? This is the main hall. And I think if I took, I remember I took a bus to get to where you guys were, and I took another bus to get where drones and robotics were, and there's another section where all the cars were. So that's just to give you guys an idea of the scale of this thing. Like it's humongous. So Yi, I want you to share what your impressions are or your experiences like as a brand attending CES. Like I don't know, what's your takeaway from that?
So I mean, this is the experience as a brand is very, very different as an experience, or from the experience as just a regular visitor, right? And like, I think we can go back to what was my first impression of CES, and I mean, I want to hear your more of your first impression. But like I said earlier, I was really hyped. I was really excited to go attend CES. It's something I dreamt about for so many years, and I finally got to go. And this all stems from the fact that like I was born and raised in the world of tech, and what that sounds a little dramatic, but I was literally born in the world of tech. Quick background: my parents, they were in manufacturing. They made transformers for different electrical applications, and when they first started, they were involved in like the panel industry. So LG and Samsung were some of their biggest clients, and then they transitioned to automotive, where basically the most famous client would be Tesla, and every Tesla on the road that any of you see out there, they supplied the parts for the power supply. And that gives you an idea of, okay, they were involved in the heart of the electronics industry. And I, being young when that was happening, had to travel with them constantly to Asia, like to China, Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong. And with all that being said, like not only have I loved, all the crazy electronics that, Asian countries have developed over the years, but also, I've been in the factories. I've visited the factories. I've been to like the Tesla headquarters and their factory. I've been given a tour like years before, even before the Model X came out. Like during the Model S production, I was there, and I've toured, like the Taser factory back when they worked with Taser, which is crazy. And it's just like I got a lot of insight. I was really fortunate. And one thing that like really sticks with me is that I appreciate how much work and how much sacrifice goes into making the electronics we love to use. There are people in China working on such low wage so that we can enjoy using these fancy, pieces of tech. And it's
and then we complain that when our phones has a notch.
Yeah, right. It's like we have such first world problems, and it's like you have to appreciate where all this comes from and at what cost. It's like we are so fortunate here, and so like it's like being able to witness all of that growing up, I think was really, really fundamental and towards shaping how my relationship with technology has formed. Right, I love it and I admire it. And I appreciate and acknowledge all the limitations that come with it as well. We may think, Apple is doing X, Y, and Z. Like, you remember like when they took out the aux cord, right? And when people are up in arms about it, and they're like, oh, how could they, and whatever. And all I can think about is, why does every single consumer feel like they know better than Apple? Right? The people whose like their livelihood depends on the success of the product, and you think you know better than them? Right?
Actually, I have a hot take on this, Yi, and I was thinking about like sharing this.
What's your hot take? Say your hot take.
This is going to be controversial, but I think people who want to be considered as tech influencers, I feel like they feel that the only thing that they need to do, not the only thing, but one of the things that they need to do is find something to complain about. And that I feel like as soon as they can find something to complain about, then they're a legitimate tech influencer. And I'm like, why do you? Because all the people that I see on Twitter, for example, that are tech influencers, and not to say that they're not putting out good stuff, but it's constant complaints about things that don't. For me personally, I always go with the overall user experience, right?
Yeah.
How does this affect the overall usage of things? Like people, for crying out loud, stop complaining about the notch.
Oh my goodness.
It's fine. It's not a topic that we should be talking about. But yeah, that just goes back to your what you were saying. But yeah, that was just my hot take. I feel like you don't have to complain about everything to be considered a legit tech reviewer. I don't think that's necessary at all. As a matter of fact, I think.
Agree.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think it's a lot hard because it's easy. It's easy to complain about something. It's a lot harder to try to understand the rationale, like why it's designed this way.
So fair. And so okay,
right?
That actually leads me to a really good like basically story of which like I have in my process developing wireless chargers. We've met with so many engineers from different companies, and we've like either through connections or just like the different suppliers. And one of the people I spoke to was an engineer at Foxconn. And for those of you who don't know what Foxconn is, they are the manufacturer for Apple. So all the iPhones and MacBooks and whatnot, they all come from Foxconn. Apple simply purchases them from Foxconn and then resells them to us, the end consumer. And when I was speaking to this engineer, he revealed a lot of insight about what goes on, behind the scenes. What is Apple thinking, right? And I mean, it kind of makes sense. Basically, like this isn't even revealing any like inside baseball, but at this point, it's just saying, listen, Apple took away the aux, the 3.5 millimeter input because they're making space for other technologies, and also they're transitioning towards a certain product roadmap. It's very obvious.
It's very obvious.
Apple doesn't make an iPhone like a year at a time and think this is it, right? Like this is we somehow got this out and then like like crap, what are we gonna do next year? Like that's not how it works. For any company, your product roadmap is not as like simple as that. And
yeah, to put it into context, right? Like right now, as we are enjoying the iPhone 13, there's most likely an iPhone 14 already tested.
14,
being tested
15,
right now.
like 16, yeah. Exactly. Like and this is for every company, right? And so, there's a reason, there's a rationale, and it's like just like why is there a notch? There's a notch because it's probably the best way to implement those sensors without sacrificing, quality. Sacrificing the quality and consistency of your sensors, right? Like you can definitely there are companies like mobile companies that are putting under surface or like below the panel cameras, and all the tests that I've seen of those cameras, they have garbage quality. And so Apple is not a company that is going to add that in, right? They're never going to be a company that adds in a subpar component. And like this is just like wireless charging. Like they took years before they implemented wireless charging, and this is a big issue for us because we're trying to constantly predict, okay, is this next iPhone going to have wireless charging? And if it does, what kind of standard are they using? How much can it receive in terms of input? All of these speculations. And at the end of the day, what we realize time and time again is that Apple will always play it safe. They're always going to have the most conservative method forward in terms of what technologies they're using because they care about reliability, consistency, dependability, all of these things that you come to expect and demand of Apple as a brand, right? That's why you're willing to pay that premium.
Exactly. So it's not about the gimmicks. I mean, obviously they still have their own gimmicks. Like every company has their own gimmick. Yeah. But it's all about like everyone always makes fun of Apple saying, they used to be innovative, but now they're like, oh look, we took away your charger or your aux input, and then it's like, oh, that's innovation. Like, well, no, I mean, they're focusing on actually delivering an experience that's actually reliable and, like you said, like enjoyable. Like that's why the only thing that people always say about Apple products is the ecosystem, because it is awesome. Yeah, it's an awesome ecosystem. And then, but yeah. Oh, actually, I don't know if I don't know if you use. This is diving like, or I'm throwing.
If we're like going so far.
Yeah. If we're going so far from the topic, but I wanted to know, like, from your perspective as a brand. So I'm trying to imagine you attending CES. So your intent was basically to try to market yourself, right? Like to try to market some products. But at the same time, you're seeing all of this innovation that's happening, and obviously, you also have to keep in basically be aware of what's happening in the industry. So, was part of you being like, okay, I'm excited to be here. I want to showcase this. I want to sell this to people. But at the same time, you're like, oh shit! Like I have to make sure that my product is compatible with all this new technology that's going around.
Yeah.
Like, is that?
That is definitely consideration, and that's beyond just looking at CES, right? That goes back to us trying to predict. Okay, we know that our target demographic is going to be iOS users, and if it's going to be iOS users, we need to figure out ahead of time what is the next iPhone going to have in terms of wireless charging, technology. Again, how fast will it be? Is anything going to be different about it? Do we need to worry about it? And actually, at that time, during that year when we were at CES, Apple was rumored to come out with wireless charging. However, there were two huge standards that were at bat. Kind of like the whole HD DVD versus Blu-ray. This was in this case it was Qi versus A4WP, and you could kind of see if you had like a T chart of the strengths and weaknesses of each standard. It was really compelling. It was a complete toss-up about which one Apple would go with, because in some sense one was far superior, but the other was more widely adopted. And so in this case, Qi, which is what Apple uses now, was much more widely adopted, but A4WP still has some big backers behind it, and the technology was so good. In my head still, I wish they had gone that direction, because then we would have had wireless charging that wasn't so limited. What I mean by that is I can stick the wireless charging pad easily under my table, and it could transmit through that table without any problem. I actually saw an example of it at CES that same year, where a Korean company was demonstrating A4WP charging technology that could reach a distance of about a meter, right? A meter above the pad. And so, and they were showing us that and the wattage was insane. They were powering a whole 40-inch TV along with a lamp and another toy, all wirelessly.
Dang, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I'm like, I cannot believe I had to forego this technology because Apple as a company has so much influence. We just had to all steamroll the entire industry towards one standard.
That's crazy. Yeah. That's pretty cool, though. You can see how powerful a brand can get in a sense, they literally are directing the way people or other companies develop their products.
Completely.
Because everyone wants to be able to serve whatever Apple is churning out, right? Which is kind of insane for me, because they're not the most innovative right now, but they sure are the leaders, which is crazy.
Yeah, exactly. You can be a leader without being innovative, right? That's the lesson we're being taught.
Remember, okay, so this is a little offshoot of our experience on CES, but remember that one booth that we both visited and the guy had no idea what he was selling? Remember the lamp that was floating?
The magnetic levitating light bulb, right? Again, a product that I have seen years before that, but somehow this company was like, "Hey, we have this new idea," and you were trying to ask him about it, and he's like, "I don't know."
I don't know. Yeah, he doesn't care. So I kind of feel bad for them, because they flew all the way to the United States just to sell that, to try to showcase that product.
Yeah. And
they had to pay a good amount of money to be in that space.
Yeah.
And the guy that was representing them literally did not know what he was. He kept laughing, and Yi and I just started laughing, because he was just like, I don't know anything. We even asked the very bare minimum. Okay, how can we find out more about your company? Do you have a website? And he goes, no. So I'm like, okay. That's fun. But that's probably the most interesting part for me of CES, that that area where you guys were.
Yeah, so
because this is where all the startups.
So the place where all the startups are located is called Eureka Park, and this is inside like the Sands Expo Center. And it is where you'll see a whole mishmash of startups in all different stages. But they do have a requirement, which is you need to have a product, I think a purchasable product, and it cannot have been launched. It cannot have been older than a year, essentially. So a startup with a recent product, and that's the requirement. And we may have fibbed a little bit about when our product came out, just so we could be there. Because again, they're not going to check. But you get to see companies like that, companies that have absolutely no idea what they're doing. But at the same time, you'll see other brands where what's that company? Is it Moft that makes the cases, like the stands?
Yeah.
Like Moft was there. And I believe I met the founder that year as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They're a cool company.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very cool. And like what's funny is that a lot of brands that will get targeted at or buy on IG, like they were right there alongside with us in Eureka Park, and I got to meet some of the founders here and there, and that's a fun experience because you realize that these, like, we're all small companies of varying sizes, but we're all pretty passionate about, I designed this product. I love what I made, and I'm excited about it. I'm passionate to share about how I made it, and potentially just connecting, getting to know each other.
There are people behind these companies, which is really, really cool. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So Yi, what do you think? What are your predictions for this CES? What do you think? Are you going? I forgot.
Yeah, am I going? Am I going?
Are you going?
I'm registered, if that means anything.
Okay.
So I'm registered.
I'm
for
going.
CES. Yes, Michael is going. He might bring his wife, which should be wonderful.
It should be interesting. She's like, am I going to be bored? I'm like, I don't know.
Honestly, it's a toss-up. She could love it or she could hate it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think, so there's the thing I told Michael this, like the ideal time to spend at CES is honestly like a day. Any more than that, it's tiring, and you see so much junk and garbage and you feel kind of defeated. And that actually ties back to the fact of, what was my first time at CES like? So my first day going to CES ever, I was really excited. And by the time I finished that day, I thought to myself, wow, I'm really disappointed by what it is. It's not the polished show that I thought it would be. And in fact, I think 98% of it is just trash. It's a lot of things that you'll never see the light of day, products that I will never care about or interact with. And I mean, that's why, when we look on websites like The Verge or CNET, they only report on a tiny, tiny fraction of the products because those are the only ones that are worth talking about.
The only ones that the public will be interested in.
Exactly. Like the scale of CES compared to what is reported on is so different, right? It's so skewed. And I mean, and that's why, like, for me, I really don't have that much interest in attending CES. I went last year because it was virtual, and we did a whole live stream. The year before that, I was there because that was when we were exhibiting, I believe.
Yeah, that's when I met you.
It was pre-COVID.
You guys.
It was pre-COVID. Yeah. So that's when we were exhibiting that year. And then the 2 years before that, I went purely for research, to conduct research on the market, to scope out who the competitors were. And at this point, I realized that it doesn't really provide me any benefit to go, aside from getting my name badge that says 6 years in a row or 5 years in a row, whatever it is, just to show off my little badge.
Yeah.
So it's like, aside from having that, like there's really nothing that I find that valuable. And again, I can just look it up. I can look up online what the standout products are.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
From a content creator's perspective, though, I think it's very insightful to attend. Like what Yi said is completely true. I think if you are attending for the first time, honestly, my recommendation would be stick to the main hall, which is where all the big names are, because that's where you get all the content you are going to want to share. Most of the other stuff you'll see are very niche. Remember those? I saw even like a company that sold fashion wear, like bags and stuff, but all their products had screens on them, because what they were showcasing was the foldable and rollable, or like the malleable screens. It was kind of crazy. It's like, I'm never going to buy something like this, but it's cool to see. Is it useful in any way? I mean, probably maybe in the future, but not right now. It's just not fashionable. You know what I mean? Yeah. So, but most of the stuff though that you will see that you will enjoy are in the main hall. So if you are going to attend, definitely do that. And like what Yi said, a day is enough. Don't try to stress over like visiting the whole thing because you will never be able to do that. Because I tried. It was really hard.
And you'll hate yourself for even trying because you'll realize, wow, what a colossal waste of time that was.
Yeah. But you know what though? People who are in the tech space who create content around this, and I know a lot of people who listen to this are, actually, here's the thing. How can they attend CES? Maybe it's a good way to try to at least explain myself how I was able to attend the first time.
That's informative.
Yeah. So, okay. So for the first, to me, I got lucky. Honestly, I got lucky that I met Yi and we hit it off, and it wasn't like an intention from the get-go, like, okay, I'm gonna snooze, or you know what I mean, like I'm going to befriend this guy so I can get into CES, because at that point I had no idea what CES was. It
wasn't some ulterior motive of
no,
long con of I'm gonna get to know this person and then he's gonna get me into CES for free.
So it's I think so from my experience, it was because I was able to partner with a brand, which is Yi's brand, and they trusted me enough to be like, okay, you know, we can get you in if you want to experience it, and you can possibly learn more and create content using that. And so obviously there was like an understanding that, you know, whatever they gave me can benefit me, and also later down the road might benefit them. So I say, if you are able to find a company or a brand that you work really well with, then try to see if there are avenues, if they are attending, if there's a way that they can sponsor you maybe to get there. The other thing is, if you can manage to grow your following, which actually I'm happy to report that this year, because the first time I attended CES, I was just like, okay, my next goal is to be able to attend CES on my own accord. Yeah. Not that I don't appreciate what you did, but you know what I mean? It's just of course, like, yeah, it's nice to know that I can do it on my own. So I was able to do that. I was actually really happy because when I got the email that, you know, they're accepting basically registrations, and I'm like, okay, let me try this out. And they have a minimum requirement of how many followers and a social media presence.
What is
I got in.
What's the minimum?
I think the minimum was like 30,000 followers on YouTube, or 50,000. No, not 50,000, because I'm still under 50,000. Or a couple of thousands on Twitter. I think Twitter was a big thing for them, and YouTube versus Instagram. I remember that because I think tech Twitter is a thing. Like, people do talk a lot about tech on Twitter. So I managed to get in through a combination of Instagram and on YouTube. But I think, I got in, and I was just like, oh, this is awesome. So now for me, that's very helpful, because as a content creator, I can kind of predict my direction when I'm collaborating with brands, right? Because my prediction for this year, actually, the last time I attended, it was kind of the direction I was thinking, but it never happened, maybe because of COVID. But honestly, I think the next wave of like big tech products are definitely going to be smart home stuff. Like, and I'm not talking about just speakers. I'm talking about like appliances and just like old people stuff, like vacuum cleaners.
Well, okay, hold on. This is fun. Yeah. I like this topic. Okay. How many smart home devices do you have? Okay,
so I basically have the thermostat.
Yeah.
The camera, speakers. Mm-hmm. Do I include tablets? No, right?
No, these are no. We're like smart outlets or smart appliances.
And TV. Recently, I got a vacuum. That's why I inserted vacuum there, because I did get a smart vacuum.
Yeah.
But so those are the ones that I have in my household.
So
why do you ask?
So this is a fun topic, because I'm a huge proponent and advocate of smart home or smart home devices. My problem with it is that, one, the infrastructure or the platform for like IoT applications is so fractured. You know, like I'm a huge Apple fan, but for the life of me, it is way too pricey to get Apple HomeKit certified smart devices. Right? It's way too expensive. And so that's why all of my home automation or smart home devices, they all live on Google Home. And, you know, I won't say how many homes I've got set up for this, but it's more than one. And I look at okay, let's take my condo, for example, right? I have a Google Home in every single room. And I don't mean every single bedroom and my living room. I mean this office, bathroom, office, my bedroom, and my master bath, my kitchen, and then my powder room, right? I have even my sound bar as another like Google Home. Technically, I have no matter where you go in my in my home,
you have someone to talk to,
someone to ask a question to, and music to play. I had some friends over, and they're like, "Dude, this is like a restaurant."
It's like an elevator.
Yeah, and it's like it's such a random thing, but it's so satisfying to have audio in every room. But then
it is cool, right?
It is. It's super cool, and it's so easy.
Yeah.
But then let's take a step back and think, like, what's the practicality of this, right? Like, what utility does it serve beyond just allow me to play music in every room? Like, what can I use Google for? And this is kind of where I start to hit a wall, because I'm trying to think of what purposes or how easy is it for me to set up other smart devices. So aside from me installing smart lights like RGB lights and hooking up my TV to it, like one problem I ran into is my recessed lighting, my built-in lighting in this condo. They're not regular bulbs, and so I have no choice but to actually install a smart switch right on the wall. The problem is, they're not even standard switches. Like, I'd never seen these switches before in my life. And so like I'd have to replace the entire panel along with the switches. And I'm like, this is so difficult. And then on top of that, at the end of the day, all I get out of it is I can say, hey, blank, turn on these lights. Turn on or turn off the lights. But like, again, that's not faster than me walking out my door and just turning it on or turning it off. And that still restricts me to, I'm simply turning on and off lights. I'm not actually automating anything crazy. Like, I would love to say, hey friend, make me a coffee, or hey friend, like warm up my food. I can't do any of that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I think that's why that's where the next big push in technology is going to be. Like trying to think of ways to actually better serve us and not give us headaches, just like what you experienced, right? Because frankly speaking, I think we've reached the pinnacle of what a cell phone can do, like what a normal cell phone can do. Because at this point, all they're doing is selling us a camera, right? Like,
if I'm being honest, with a 120 hertz screen, and that's about it.
It's like, by the way, guys, I bought a new camera. Oh yeah, I can make phone calls with it. So that's essentially what the phones are nowadays. And the same goes with TVs, right? Like, TVs are so, now it's just a contest of which one is bigger, which one is thinner. But practically speaking, how often do you move your TV, right? Yeah. It's cool to have a very thin TV. It's cool to have like whatever it is, but yeah, it doesn't really add anything, because what you're immersing yourself in is the experience of watching whatever show that you're watching, not necessarily the hardware itself. But although I will say that I have seen those, I think it was LG, the frame looks amazing as a picture frame.
It does look phenomenal.
It looks amazing. I thought it was like an actual painting, and then it switched. I'm like, oh, it's a TV.
Yeah, no, exactly.
That was impressive. Yeah, that was impressive. So I'm curious to see what this CES is going to be like. And if you are going to be there, Yi, we definitely should meet up, because at some point you need to meet my wife, because I'm really tired of telling her that I'm meeting my friend who I met on the internet.
Yeah, on the internet.
And cooked lunch for me. She's like, who is this guy?
I'm tired of her thinking that I'm just some like internet troll that you're friends with. I am more than that label. I am more than an internet friend.
Ye's insulted.
I know. I can't believe she won't accept me.
That's hilarious.
Yeah. So I want to wrap this topic up actually about CES and smart home. It's something where I would love for this to be a focus, because I think there's a lot of potential in this field and in this sector. But again, it's more about practically understanding what more can be automated, and what more do I actually need automated in my home. Like this is kind of like, you can set statuses for Google Home. You can say, hey friend, I'm home, or hey friend, I'm leaving, and it can run these sequences of automations. But even I have run into an issue where like I set up my automations for home and away, and then I set up my girlfriend's automations for her apartment for home and away. And I swear, if she leaves, turns off all my stuff too. Right? And so I'm just like, I'm just hanging out, and it goes like, bam. I'm like, what is going on?
At least you know where she is.
At least
she left.
I know she left, right? And then she comes home, right? It's like, and then so we had for a week, we were saying, are you turning off my lights? Are you turning on my lights? And we were so confused. Like, you know what? I'm turning this feature off. This is so terrible. Right? I cannot believe that it cannot distinguish between like homes and locations properly. And maybe it's me not setting up correctly, but I am decently tech savvy. And if I feel like I'm not getting it to work properly just by setting it up, then there's just an issue in terms of how it's managed. Right?
Yeah, actually, it's a good point, because I don't think it should be. Good tech shouldn't be hard to use. It should be simple and straightforward. I think that's the hallmark of good technology, right? Yeah. And so, I don't want to go back to like the whole Apple thing, because Apple also has problems with sometimes simplifying things. But it's not about just being perfect. It's just about being easy to use and understand. And I think at the end of the day, if ye can just say, hey, whoever, turn off the lights, or don't turn it off when my girlfriend leaves and it works, you know what I mean? Then he'll be happy. Right?
Yeah. It's like, stop messing around with me.
It's hilarious. Hey, well, how do you feel about this, Yi? How do you feel about this you attending or guesting on Coffee Creators every so often? Would you be open to that? I think it would be fun to have you just talk about.
Are you asking me out formally?
I'm asking you. I'm asking you. Well, actually, let's ask the audience first. Do you guys want Yi back? Please don't say no.
Yeah. Woo.
Yeah, okay. I'll take that as a yes. Actually, you know what? I'll take this as a yes. Oh, there you go.
Yeah. There it is. Wow,
okay.
Look at you with the audio cues.
With soundboard, yeah.
That soundboard is killing it.
See, that's how you use technology. No, I'm just kidding.
So,
but yeah, I appreciate you being here, by the way. So I really, really appreciate that. It's kind of hard doing a podcast by myself. So thank you.
It's extremely fun to be here. I mean, I don't know if the audience can tell by now, but Michael and I, we really do shoot the shit a lot. And we spend a lot. We spend a lot of time offline chatting, and this is just, I think, having this dialogue. Before this podcast, we were talking to each other about, okay, what can we share today? And we realized that there's actually a lot that we can't share, because there are projects that we're working on outside of this podcast, because we have lives.
We do have lives. Yeah.
We do have lives. And there are projects that we're working on that we're really excited about, and we just can't share those details yet. And truth be told, a lot of what we talk about offline is just trying to figure out, okay, how do we progress? How do we keep making cool things? And, for those of you wondering, how is it, how do I fit in potentially into the whole idea of Coffee with Creators? I consider myself a creator just as much as Michael is. And it's just that I'm not creating content. I'm creating products. I'm creating brands. And, there's a lot of overlap. And the great thing about being in a role where I can create products and I have to work with other creatives to come up with these campaign ideas and commercials and ads and all the kind of stuff, it just shows how much crossover there is. I can't do what I do without the help of people like Michael and the help of people, I'm sure, like the audience members who are listening, because we thrive off of each other. We work together. We share ideas. We share passions about, how can I share a message most effectively? And the skills that I lack, are the skills that people like Michael make up for. And it's extremely fun, because we can brainstorm all the time about, what's a fun idea, or what's like the next thing that we want to work on. And it just snowballs, right? That's the similarity. Like, it's the excitement about creating new things that just like takes us off, gets the adrenaline going, keeps Michael up at night with the heavy, the heavy
you
sweats.
guys don't know.
Right.
It's crazy.
And it's like, it's all the same. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I invite we have brands on the Coffee Creators as well. And so, by the way, we're gonna have a couple of guests in the future, which is gonna be exciting. But yeah, because I consider them just like what you said as creators themselves. They are creators. Like literally, I think everyone is in some way is a creator, right? It's just a different. We have our own lanes, and so for me, it's on social media, video, whatever. Yi is in products and services and whatever else that he's working on right now. So it's very interesting to see different viewpoints from these two different industries, if you will, right? So I think this is going to be fun to have you back, Yi. And if you guys have any specific questions that you want to ask someone from the brand side, I think Yi would be able to give his insight, and that would be super cool, super just insightful.
Definitely.
So I think let's do that. So if you guys have any questions, send them in either through the Coffee Week Creators Instagram page, which is @coffeewcreators, or through the email, which is coffeeweekcreators podcast@gmail.com. I'm so sorry because that's a long ass email, but I think for this episode though, well, I'm gonna stop there. But before we end this episode, I just want to share a couple of things, which is as much as we love doing this Coffee Creators podcast, it's not self-sustaining yet, so we would very much love it if you could share this podcast with your friends and family, so you can basically help support the show by doing that. And reach out to us on Instagram, like I said, or even on the Gmail. Also, lastly, we are now uploading episodes on YouTube. So this episode is going to go live on YouTube soon. Help us reach 100 subscribers, because that way we can have a custom URL. Because right now it's kind of hard to locate us. But if you type in Coffee with Creators Podcast, you should be able to find it. I think that's pretty much it. And on behalf of my co-host, Chelsea, we thank you again for listening to the Coffee with Creators podcast, and hope to see you guys again soon. And that's it. Bye-bye.
Bye.